I was only 25 when I got released from WWE. Well, there's no way. Like, I'm so young and I'm good. I had only pictured being a WWE diva. TNA was starting the Knockouts division and they hit me up. A few years into TNA and a lot of success really showed me this was your path.
The legacy that you left there, I mean, you helped build that division, which that was the door jam for what's happening with women's wrestling today. The beautiful people was a huge part of that.
That's something that I will always have that nobody can take away from me.
And coming from being in that developmental system and in WWE for a while, Angelina, you know that it's on Friday, it can be no clotheslines. And then a week and a half later, why isn't anybody throwing clotheslines? And it's just...
Oh, well, and a lot of it with your look too, right? Like, I know that was, especially in Deep South, that was always, it was like, however you are hired looking, you must stay that way, and like, Gallows, he had like a little Superman tattoo on his arm and he really wanted to cover that up. And I think they just kept telling him like, no, you can't, you can't, you can't. And then he ended up getting like some huge, he just did it one day, got this huge skull thing. And man, he got in so much trouble. And for me, like, I've always been like this, right? Well, I was wanting to add like a little bit of brown, maybe a little bit of black, kind of whatever. And I remember I was always told like, no, 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 no. And then one day I just did it. And then I went to the training center the next day and like no one noticed. And I was like, why was this a big deal? Like, you don't even notice it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm always interested, Angelina, in your journey because I really feel like people who are talented and driven, they're going to make it no matter what. Like, you can drop them in any era, you can drop them in any territory, it doesn't matter. They're going to figure it out. And I remember being in OVW, and when you're in Deep South and they shipped you to OVW and you were let go 2 days later. And I remember thinking that was freaking disgusting. Like, it made everybody's head spin.
Yeah.
I know it had to be a hard time, but like, you really bounced back and went on to a career high. What gave you that determination? How did that feel at the time? And then how did the comeback feel?
Well, I felt like, I was only 25 when I got released from WWE. So I'm like, well, there's no way. Like, I'm so young and I'm good. There's no way that like, this is it. Like this, that was not like in my realm of belief whatsoever. Mild and hectic time. I had kind of just very recently caught up with like Mike Knox and Gallows about that whole like, Deep South thing and how it just kind of shut down out of nowhere. And it was like, if you were going to TV, you went to OVW, and if they had nothing for you and you were still just training, you went down to Tampa and started FCW. And I mean, that was like the second time in my life I had ever had like a complete panic attack, was like right when I got to Louisville. And, some of the guys had got there before me. I was the last one to get there. And they were already doing the Six Flags shows. And I was like, am I supposed to do these shows? Like, I don't know. I haven't heard anything and I'm not there, but everyone else is there and I don't know what to do. And no one's telling me what to do. And, my parents came down and, that whole rock star story, they basically drove 11 hours from Canada down to Louisville to help me to basically get my apartment together while I could go do one training class, one show, one tape review, and then get released that night. And, they had already gone back to Canada. They turned around once Nova called me and told me that I was released. They turned around, stopped on a dime, crossed the border, drove 8 hours back and brought me back to Canada. And I was living in my sister's house in the guest room, 25 years old. And, I had only in my head ever pictured being a WWE diva. That was it. It was like, that was it. And that was it. Right. So when I lost that, I most certainly bawled myself to sleep probably for a month straight. But then it was like I went down to AAA and definitely was not emotionally ready to be doing shows at that time. And I got my ass whooped down there. And like just did some indies like in Canada. And I think I did a couple in the States. And then, I mean, within 4 months, TNA was starting the Knockouts division and they hit me up. So I was definitely down for that. Obviously, like, we knew what TNA was. I was doing, we were all, as Toronto kids, were going down to Nashville to, back in like 02, 03 to do like the be at and be seen at like those Wednesday pay-per-views and stuff. So we knew of it. So yeah, it was and little did I know, like, hindsight is, you realize later, like, I was like, it was just never meant to work in WWE, and that's okay. It took me a long time to realize that though. But I think a few years into TNA and a lot of success really showed me like, well, this was your path. That's why.
How do you feel looking back on the legacy that you left there? I mean, you helped build that division, which is, let's be honest, that was the door jam, the kick in for what's happening with women's wrestling
Mhm.
today. And the beautiful people and yourself was a huge part of that. Are you cognizant of that legacy and that impact that you had?
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like still to this day when we go to indie shows, like there will be somebody who will come up to me and be like, "Oh man, like you totally influenced me." A lot of guys too, actually. But yeah, and that's something that I'm so glad and blessed that I had the opportunity because I'm like an OG, like there was a chunk of us that started it. And a lot of us went from devastated because like we never made it in WWE or never got hired in the first place, and that's all we ever wanted. And then we got to go do this thing, and man, it blew up into the biggest thing ever. So that's something that I will always have, that nobody can take away from me, is that I was an original in starting a division that really was the women's evolution, revolution, whatever you want to call it. Like that was the catalyst for sure. So I mean, like, I don't like think about it on the daily, but like sometimes if you have like somebody be like, oh man, like I'm a fan from Egypt or like some country where like you don't even think about, maybe they would have watched at some time or known who I was, it kind of like brings you down to like, man, like this has been totally wild.
Yeah, it's pretty punk rock to um to have the dream, what you thought was going to be the path and the door to your future be shut, and then trailblaze and create your own, banging pots and pans together, and not trying to hit the target, but showing that you are the target. I
Well,
think,
there wasn't no not making it. There wasn't no not having something happen. Like I said, I was only 25 and I'm like, this cannot be it. And even when I had my visa issue in TNA, um, well, actually, how was I? Yeah, so within 2 years in TNA, I had that visa issue, and then I was released again, and I'm like, "I'm in my prime right now, like, there is still no way
yeah,
that, like, it's over now or, like, this is it," and it wasn't, so I think I kinda can tell, like, intuition-wise, like, you know?
with everything you guys have gone through individually, what's something you would say to anybody in the business, outside the business, Angelina, who may be struggling with some of the same things as far as having a set of standards put on them, and that constantly being an influence on how they live their lives? What kind of advice would you give?
Anything I've ever told everybody who's ever asked that, like, my first thing is I say you have to have a thick skin with wrestling because it is so critical, that you can really get lost in critiques and criticism and stuff. So you have to have a thick skin, and you have to keep your focus on what is making it. You know what I mean? Not whatever you have going on in like your own little world or what you think things should be. You got to live in reality, and you've got to say, okay, this is these people are on television because why? You know what I mean? And you can't ever be something that you're not, because that's the phoniest thing ever. So, like with me and Velvet, like, are we as the beautiful people would act? No, but it's like us being like silly times a thousand, and we're acting and just being whatevs. So it's like, and I've done a lot of seminars where like I'll have some people like cut promos and stuff because like promos are totally my forte. And I can tell when people are not feeling it. And I think that that was something that Velvet and I were so good at in The Beautiful People, is that we were very believable and people actually thought we were that way. And that can get people emotionally invested in you, whether they love you or hate you, right? So it's like you have to come across as believable because wrestling fans know, like, this person doesn't even believe what they're saying. They're just acting, they're bad actors, they're reciting lines, doesn't sound good because everything's so critical. So it's like you just have to find what you are most comfortable with and what you can portray the best and go off of that because that's going to be the most authentic thing. And authenticity is, I think, is very huge in this business when it comes to people like believing in you and what you're trying to sell them, basically.
Yeah, and I think also there's a disconnect a lot of times in wrestling where people want to be who they perceive themselves as opposed to who the audience perceives you as. And that can kind of be a tough pill to swallow sometimes, but oftentimes, like you said, you and Jamie or you and Velvet are not, or don't act like the beautiful people. But hey, the shoe fit and it worked.
Mhm.
So the rule is get over, right? So let's run with this because we can make it believable because the audience perceives that. You kind of alluded to it where you're like, kind of look in the mirror, be honest with yourself, where people try to do something that they don't exactly fit the bill for. Hey, you jabronis. Hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to click subscribe to the YouTube channel and podcast. This has been LiMPiN AiNT Easy. It's wrestling as real as it gets.